So political parties in Parliament are at loggerheads over whether or not amendments to Section 25 of the Constitution should include state custodianship of land. Bilateral meetings between the ANC and the EFF are expected to take place today with the aim of arriving at a political settlement. But the DA says this is a cynical attempt to undermine the Constitution. According to the mandate of the ad hoc committee, an agreement must be reached on expropriation without compensation, and state custodianship was never part of its work. Now, the ANC currently does not have a two-thirds majority in Parliament. In fact, it needs the EFF's 44 votes to pass the amendments in the National Assembly. So let's unpack the story for you now. The DA's Parliamentary caucus chair, Dr. Annele Lotriet, joins us now for more. Annele, it's great to have you with us on the show. Thanks for joining us. You know, I think perhaps a valuable place to start is, where are we now in terms of the public hearings that were held in terms of amendments to Section 25 of the Constitution? And does it still appear at this seemingly late stage that there's still no agreement between political parties?
Yes. Good morning, Michelle, and good morning to all the viewers. I think it is important to have a look at and remember why we are at the point where we are at the moment. This all goes back to the ANC's Nasrec Congress in 2017, where a decision was taken by the ANC that the Constitution, Section 25 specifically, has to be amended, and that this must now be a process through Parliament. There were public hearings during the first round where, well, the fact of the matter is most of the citizens and participants in that process were not in favour of an amendment of Section 25, but however it was pushed through. And now we are busy with the ad hoc committee looking at the specific wording of this bill. Now, the original bill, as it was gazetted for public comment, did not include state custodianship, because that was not, as was correctly stated, part of the mandate of this committee. The committee had still has a very specific mandate, and that is to amend Section 25, but only in as far as expropriation without compensation goes, as a mechanism for land reform. It does not refer to all kinds of ownership or custodianship. It refers merely to expropriation without compensation. So what has happened now is that a party like the EFF have now made proposals wanting to amend basically the whole of Section 25, which has a number of subsections. And that is the problem now. Our position as the Democratic Alliance is that this falls outside of the scope of the mandate. And if you want to amend the mandate, then you have to go back to the National Assembly and ask them to amend the motion that establishes the ad hoc with the mandate.
Yeah.
And because it's such a substantial and material amendment to add custodianship, it actually has to go back for public comment.
And at this stage, the DA's stance is still that we can deal with the issue of land reform without amending the Constitution.
Absolutely. If you really have a look at Section 25, it makes more than ample provision for all the land requirements that the state has to do and the obligations that they have. It is very wide-reaching. And we don't also want to amend it because it gives a very specific role to the courts. And you cannot put anyone's right to property in jeopardy. We've had that in the past. That is part of our history, and we sit today with the problems of that. So you cannot have a repeat of a past wrong by trying to amend or improve the past wrong. But also in terms of amending the Constitution, if you really look at Section 25, it places a massive obligation on the state. And the reality is that the state has not been able to fulfill that specific obligation. And therefore, we think that amending Section 25 is nothing more than making the Constitution a scapegoat for the state's inability at this point to effect proper land reform.
Look, outside of the DA being able to make this decision on its own, you know, is it really going to come down to what the ANC and what the EFF want here in terms of getting a 2/3 majority? The ANC is in need of the EFF's 44 votes in the National Assembly. If it does come to the conclusion that state custodianship should be included in this bill, we're back to square one, aren't we? We need to have public hearings all over again. The process begins from the beginning.
Yes, that is what should happen. If it doesn't happen, remember, there's a possibility that the National Assembly passes this. It goes to the NCOP, and they have enough provinces supporting this. Then we will actually have to take legal recourse, because then it is unconstitutional in that a material and substantive amendment was effected without the public having a say in it. So in reality, yes, it should go back to square one.
You're saying in reality it should go back to square one. Is there a chance, is that what you're alluding to, that it might be included in the bill without the process starting again?
It could honestly, as we saw with the previous phase in 2018, where we had public hearings, where what was contained in the report in the end, the committee report, was not reflective of what people said, but it still passed.
Yeah.
So it is possible.
Give us a sense of your understanding of what the EFF wants in terms of state custodianship of land.
Well, they've been very vocal about this right from the start, in saying that they believe that all land should be in state custodianship, and therefore no one will own land. Land will be given to people who are interested or deemed to be proper and who are deserving of land, and that will be done on a lease basis. Let's say, for example, for 30 years, and then an adjudication will be done whether you are doing a good job, and then it can be extended. So what it means is that no one will ever own any property in this country. You will never be able to capitalize on it. You will never be able to use it to grow economically. And there will never be a chance of you leaving it to your children. So it's honestly the state taking possession of all land.
When do we have clarity on the way forward in terms of, you know, how this process will go ahead, Annele?
Well, the committee's deadline is 30 August. Now, it's been extended a couple of times. So this is now 30 August. So we're still a month, 2 months away. Well, that is when a report has to be submitted.
Yeah.
How we're going to get to 30 August is still open. We are still putting our position in the committee. We will see what happens today. I think today the ANC and the EFF have a meeting. So things are, at this point, still up in the air.
Annele Lotriet, thanks very much for your time this morning on the AM Report. She's the DA's Parliamentary Caucus Chair, and the story that we're dealing with this morning, political parties in Parliament still at loggerheads over whether or not amendments to Section 25 of the Constitution should include state custodianship of land. We understand those bilateral meetings between the ANC and the EFF have been taking place with the aim of coming to some sort of compromise. It's a big developing story that we're tracking for you right here on the channel.